Yesterday was comic book day, so of course I have my handful of an enormous stack of comic books from yesterday that I've read, and just wanted to make a video to just talk about a little bit of what came out last week. There was quite a bit. I spent a lot of money on comics this week. So I guess we'll start off with Gotham City Sirens, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a spin-off of Batman. It features some of the female villains of the Batman universe, including Poison Ivy, Catwoman, and Harley Quinn. It's a very interesting comic. The artwork is fantastic, and this particular issue is really all about the Riddler. It really should be a Riddler comic, but it seems like the Riddler is going to play a big part in the overall storyline of this new series. It was excellent. I enjoyed it a lot. Secondly, we've got the 28 Days Later comic. This is issue number 1, and I saw this cover and I was in love, and I was wondering why I liked this cover so much until I opened it up and saw that this particular variant of the cover is a Tim Bradstreet cover. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's probably because you're a Punisher fan. During that 8-year-long run that Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon had on the Punisher, a lot of the covers looked different than the inside. They weren't Steve Dillon, and that's because Tim Bradstreet did those covers, and they were fantastic, pretty close to photorealistic, and this cover is fantastic. Not just the cover, the artwork on the inside of the comic is also great. The storyline is interesting, and it's a sequel to the first movie, 28 Days Later, and it features one of the main characters from that movie. So if you're a fan of the movie, you'll definitely enjoy it, and if not, the storyline is good. If you're a fan of the zombie genre, you'll like it. So far, it seems like it's going to be a good series, so that was a nice little surprise for the week. Dark Wolverine was okay. I tend to not lean towards cape type comics. I tend to be more into limited series and indie comics, and of course, there's a couple of capes that I follow, like Deadpool and Spider-Man and Captain America. But Dark Wolverine is, of course, Wolverine's son, Daken, who's posing as Wolverine in the Dark Avengers, which is Norman Osborn's version of the Avengers. Overall, that's been pretty interesting. I think the whole Dark Reign series is better overall than Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion really didn't go anywhere. A lot of the comics had horrible artwork, horrible storylines, especially like the Punisher's Secret Invasion was horrible. So it's good to see that all of that was kind of a setup for something that's a little bit better, which has to do with Norman Osborn taking over the Avengers and getting involved with the government and destroying S.H.I.E.L.D. We got a few more here. Another one of the Dark Reign comic books that I wasn't even aware of this series, Sinister Spider-Man, which of course, it's not Peter Parker, it's not the Spider-Man that everyone knows and loves. It's actually Matt Gargan, who's the second Venom. Norman Osborn injected the symbiote costume with something that controls it so that he actually kind of looks like Spider-Man in the black costume. He's still got the kind of like crazy Venom qualities, you know. Actually, like in this issue, he grows like mouths out of different parts of his body, and he's like eating people, and it's a really cool plot line. Of course, this cover is kind of like an homage to an earlier Amazing Spider-Man cover, which had Spider-Man getting punched in the face by Hammerhead, and that itself was an homage to issue number 1 of Kick-Ass. The only problem I had with this issue is that they switched artists in the middle of the comic, which always bothers me. There's actually one 2-page spread where the left side of the comic is one artist and the right side is another. And really, you know, I can't put up with stuff like that, especially since I think this is one of the comics that went up $1. So this comic costs $3.99 in the U.S. and they can't afford to keep the same artist for the whole comic. It's maddening. Let me see if I can find the panel. The first, yeah, here it is. So if you look over here, you've got the whole cartoony style, and then over here, all of a sudden, Venom becomes very angular. The marks on his face are completely different. He's crazier looking. The coloring looks the same because it was probably the same inker doing both. But the pencils, this style is more scratchy. This one is more clean. It's just really, come on, Marvel, you can do better than that. That was disappointing. At least the storyline is good, and both artists were good. So at least there's that. Last but not least, There was issue 1 of this Batman limited series, Batman the Widening Gyre. This really was a treat. If you're not familiar with this title that just came out, this is actually a Kevin Smith limited series. Kevin Smith, the famous director, is also a fantastic comic book writer. The artwork in this one was interesting. They actually kind of draw Batman like he's Adam West, which I thought was apropos, since the first couple of pages of the comic book are like an homage to the old Batman and Robin, where Robin's like a 12-year-old kid, and then later on they flash forward to him as Nightwing, and that relates to the plot. This Batman is Bruce Wayne. It's not the new Batman, who's Dick Grayson. So you've also got that going for the comic. My only problem with this comic is that there's no parental advisory anywhere on it. There's no mature audiences, and it is super gory. Like, probably 5 panels in, there's a drawing of a guy with his brain splattered all over the floor. And it's like, I don't mind seeing that in a comic. I like a good horror comic, especially for Batman. I like a grittier Batman comic. However, there's no indication of it anywhere on the cover that this is not, Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is for kids. This is, hardcore Batman with crazy supernatural villains that tear people to pieces and burn people's faces off and all that sort of thing. So, it's not for the kids, but if you're an adult and you like Batman, definitely pick this up. I'm definitely going to pick up every single issue of this comic because the storyline is fantastic, and Kevin Smith shows an attention to detail that a lot of comic book writers don't. So that's it for comic books this week, and I hope you enjoyed yours. And if you're looking at this on YouTube, or if you're looking at this on my blog, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought about any one of the comic books that I talked about, or anything that you had pulled this week.